Good evening, everyone. So I'm hoping that my volume is working today. Got a new mic, so we'll see. New mic, new setup, new room. And we're going to start. But before I do that, I'm just going to do a very, very quick sound check. I'm not sure that everybody can hear me. Sounds good. Sounds good. So hopefully everything will come across clear. We won't have any hiccups. Okay, so welcome Arnetta. I'm not sure who Facebook user is, but that's okay. It will be on replay. That's a good thing to mention, is that this will be on replay, even though we are live. Uh, Once we're done, it automatically loads up to YouTube, and so it's available in a couple of minutes, sometimes maybe an hour, and you can come back and watch it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is, got a couple of buttons here. My name is Catherine Maldonado, and I'm the owner, curator, and founder of Sew Your Bag. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to work on our bag that we had in our last subscription box, and this is it. It's called the Sikukuu. So it's a very small bag. It's meant to be a crossbody type of bag, but you can definitely make it over the shoulder. The instructions ask you to make a relatively long strap. So the strap, along with this drop of these anchors, actually make it a crossbody. If you want to make it shorter, then you can just try it on to fit. If you don't like the fact that it's popped up, this is kind of expandable. You can always then just take it, fold it down into the bag, and then you have a shorter kind of little buckety kind of bag. So that's what it looks like from the top. So tonight, what we're going to work on is we're going to just do some prepping for the neck part 2 and part 3. And the prepping we're going to do is we're going to talk about cutting it. We're going to talk about the interfacing, and then we'll talk about different pieces of the bag. So we do have an exterior front and back. Okay. We do have these straps, and we'll adjust the strap width. The width of the straps will be 1 inch, but we will be adding a little bit of a tab right here just to make sure that the 1 inch fits into that 1/2 inch opening up there, because a little small opening. And then that will connect to the bag on the side. When it comes to the inside of the bag, and I'm just going to turn this guy inside out so you can see it. When it comes to the inside of the bag, it does have a very, I'm going to say it's just a plain zippered pocket on one wall. And on the opposite wall, you will have card slots. So every pattern I do is about growing your bag making skills. It's meant to give you new experiences in bag making that you may not have already tried. And you do it once, you don't like it, don't ever do it again. But if you like it, it's definitely something you should think about incorporating into other bags that you may make. So as we turn the bag wrong side out, what you will see here is we have card slots. So there are little card slots here. We will be reinforcing those card slots. And just to keep the symmetry of the bag, we also have that center striping going down the middle of the exterior fabric. And then we have a zippered pocket as well. So if you've never done a zippered pocket, we're going to be doing one here. It will be 2 different lengths, so we'll have to pay attention. In the back of the pattern, and I will put the pattern link in the show notes, in the back of the pattern, there is a sheet where you can actually cut out and label all of your pieces so you won't get confused. And then for the card slots, these are really 5 separate pieces, so it's not one long piece that's folded. They're 5 separate pieces. And we will reinforce this top edge here of the card slot a little bit. So that is our bag. You're also going to need some type of strap connector. The strap connectors that you use are up to you. You can use a D-ring if you have that, and a lobster claw, a rectangular. If you're not going to use a lobster claw or a swivel hook type of connector, I would recommend maybe try a triangular or a square connector piece to attach the strap. And that will look very nice. I also think that when it comes to lobster claw clasps, They are not my favorite to use with any other hardware. And that's because it's too much movement. But if you like that look, you can use, in place of this, is a D-ring on the side and a lobster claw at the top just to attach the strap. Or I would recommend, a rectangular or a D-ring because it's more fixed in size and dimensions, but it's totally up to you. I'm using these connectors and they actually are from Serial Bag Maker. And this is the antique color. These chains actually add a nice length, and it also makes the bag look pretty when it comes to like jewelry. I love a little bit of jewelry. You will also need two zippers. So there's going to be a zipper that closes the top, and then you will need a zipper for the inside as well. So it's up to you. The directions ask you to use a number 3, which is equivalent to a dress zipper. And this one is a number 5, which is a handbag zipper. You can use both number 5 zippers if you would like. For the exterior, I would recommend that you not use number 3, only because the pattern is written specifically for a number 5. But on the interior, if you want to use a number 5, you can if you're comfortable. Okay, so let's get started talking a little bit about the cutting. So inside of the pattern on page, I think it's 3, so inside the pattern on page 4 is actually a layout of your material, and it's just a way to show you how to cut your exterior fabric so that you can get the most out of it. Keep in mind, if you're using a directional fabric, you may need a little bit more than the actual pattern calls for, because you want to make sure that all of your print is facing up. So to do that, you may not be able to cut it the way that the cutting layout is. However, if you're using, this one happens to be not really directional, right? Because you can see this goes this way, and I did that intentionally, and this goes out to the side. It is Ankara fabric, so what happens is no matter which way you cut it, it's a fun type of fabric. So that's on page 4. On page 5 is actually the cutting list with the dimensions and all the material that you're going to need. So let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to be using, and I just want to, one second, let me get all of the extra bits out of the way to give you the maximum amount of room that you can see. Okay, so hopefully you can see my cutting mat just fine. I will be switching, just so that you know, I will be switching between the cutting mat and the actual sewing machine. So you will see the camera switch, because as I want to show you things, it's important that you see exactly what I'm doing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my exterior fabric, and this is the fabric that I'm using. And if you are using, and all the patterns are written for cotton fabric, you're more than welcome to try it with vinyl if you're comfortable, but it's not written for vinyl. It is written for cotton fabrics. This is, once again, is Ankara, which is the specialty of my box. So I will be using the same material as I used for the bag. And Ankara is, I find, sometimes a little bit thicker depending on what you get than a regular quilting cotton. But I will be using this for the exterior of the bag. I will also be using this for the part that actually pops up off of the bag, as well as for the internal pocket lining and that little strip that went down the middle. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut 2 pieces of this fabric, but along with cutting 2 pieces of this fabric, we're also going to need 2 pieces of interface. So it doesn't matter how you want to cut this. I'm just going to cut this in a fun way. And I'm not going to be purposeful with it. I'm going to be random. So I'm going to be a little bit surprised as to what I'm going to get. But before I actually cut it, I'm just going to quickly give it an iron to get as many wrinkles out as possible. Now, I know people ask me, oh, should I wash this fabric? If you wash it, I would recommend that you wash it in cold water. And also I recommend cold or warm water, not hot water. And I also recommend that you let it line dry to make sure that as it's drying, you don't lose any of that coloring and it doesn't fade. So wash it, take it out, let it line dry, and then you can iron it. So I will be ironing this a couple of times. I'm just getting most of the wrinkles out as I can, just to make it flat. Alrighty then. So let's begin cutting this. I will cut the exteriors first because that's what's listed, the front and the back. I use a rotary cutter and a a cutting mat, and I also use, as you can see, I also use I will be using a ruler. Now, if you're somebody who's more comfortable using a pair of scissors, you can absolutely cut the pieces out to measurement. So draw lines and cut them out to the measurements that you would like. And then from there, you can cut them out by hand. So we're going to need 2 pieces for the front and the back. And I will be cutting my pieces lengthwise, so I will be cutting them with my selvage. So this is my selvage at the top and the bottom. And for me, that's because I'm going to want what looks like wheat leaves over here. I'm going to want these facing towards the top of my bag. So that's why I'm cutting it top and bottom. So my selvage is on the left and the right, or on the screen it's right and left. And that's how I'm going to cut this. I'm not worrying as far as the design is, so I don't need them exact placement because one will be on the front, one will be on the back. I just want to make sure those shafts or those, I guess what looks like wheat leaves to me, they're not actually, but I want to make sure those are at the top. So let's cut this out. And tonight what I will be showing you is I will be cutting a couple of pieces with you. I will leave the rest of them for you to do for homework. And tomorrow night, you should have all of them, or for part 2, you should have all the pieces cut. I will explain to you what the pieces are as I go through it. And I will explain to you exactly what pieces you need to prepare if you're going to join me live tomorrow evening. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off my selvage, and my selvage is on this side. And that's because I don't want it. Yeah, I don't want to have to worry about it. So I'm going to cut it off. And then I will cut my bag pieces. I know some people, everybody's different. Some people don't like rotary cutters. It makes the job for me so much easier, so I don't mind it. If you're somebody who's used to just drawing it, then you can, like I said, you can draw it, your pattern pieces out, and then cut it. For me, like I said, I like to do it in such a way that it makes it quicker for me. So I'm going to cut 2 pieces. So the first piece, so for me, I'm just going to fold this in half like this, because remember I said I want 2 pieces, and they're going to be the width of the bag. So that's why I'm folding them in half here. And I know exactly how wide I need it to be, as well as how tall I need it to be. So I'll cut the width first, and then I'll cut the height. Okay, so just took it off the table a little bit so I can fold it. All right, so now I'm going to cut this. And I want to cut it so that I have a little bit of extra for myself in case, once I cut it, it's a little wonky and I have to do some more straightening. But pretty much you're going to cut it to the size that you need according to the pattern, either using the chart on page 4 or the pattern pieces as they're written out on page 5. So I'm just going to make sure these are all the same, for me, the same width at the fold, and then I'll cut them. Okay. So now then I'm going to cut width and height. width and height I'm going to cut. So I'm going to cut about here. And I know that I'm straight, so because I'm looking at my edge over here, which you can't see, but I know that that's straight. So once again, this is going to be the front and the back that I'm cutting. I am using a rotary cutter and a ruler. If you have any questions, please just ask. Hey, Vet. How are you? I love the little hi, hi, hi. Okay. Once again, I'm going to cut off the selvage. I didn't cut enough off for my front and my back, so I'm just going to cut that off for my front and my back. And then I'm going to cut this down to size. Remember I said I cut mine a little bit bigger purposely so that I can cut it down to size. And this will be the front and back. So this is the height is going to be shorter than the width. So just if you're looking at it and think it's odd looking, that's why. And then I'm just squaring this up now. I'm glad you're doing well. I hope you had a great holiday and was able to take some time off. All right, so that's the front and back of our bag. You can see that it's not necessarily, you know, the back looks a little bit different than the front, and that's okay. That's the fun part of this. And when I make this, if I decide, well, I don't like those things going up, I can always just flip it around this way, and it could come down from the top and from the back. So, you know, you can play with it. But once again, if you have directional fabric, make sure that you cut it in such a way that if this is your top, it's the top as well on the back. So this is the front and back. I'm just going to clip those together and put them to the side. All right, so the next thing that we're going to cut is we're going to cut the lining center. But before I do that, just to make sure and to get it out of the way, is I will be cutting my strap itself. So the main strap, I'm just going to cut that. And that's going to pretty much go from selvage to selvage. It is a, you know, if the piece is, it's a 44-inch strap. Keep in mind, you're going to get a little bit more than that because of the fact you have those strap connectors. So because you have the strap connectors, your strap, if you cut it selvage to selvage, and this fabric happens to be 44 inches wide. If you have 42, that's quite okay as well. Just try on your strap if you need to try on your strap and if you need to make it a little bit longer. But the strap connectors themselves, I believe, and I will grab them to show you, measure about, I think I measured them and they were like 2 inches or something like that. Oh, they're longer. So they're about, they're about 3.5 inches. So you're adding an extra 3.5 inches on each side, which is about 7 inches. So when you do your strap, and in this case, it's going to be 44 inches. When you do your strap, you then add 7, which will give you approximately 51 inches for the length of your strap. So if you don't want your strap to be that long, once again, try it on and get it to be the length that you want. The pattern makes it kind of like a crossbody. So that's why it's that long. It's a crossbody without an adjustable strap. Okay, So I'm just going to square this up and then cut my strap. Yes, so it is a new bag. And I haven't forgotten you. So I don't know if Maria, if you're on, I have not forgotten you. It is not the new bag for this month, January. It's the last bag of last year. So I did not do that bag sew along because I figured everybody would be on holiday or doing different things in September, and I didn't want you to have any distractions from your family time and your preparation. So this is the one that went out in November. We will be doing another sew along probably in a couple of weeks in the early part of February for the bag that's going out this month, which is January of 2023, in case somebody watches this later on. So I'm going to cut my strap just to make sure I have enough fabric. And you should, if you bought the subscription box, you should have enough fabric. But I just want to, if you're doing this on your own and you're using your own fabric, normally to cut the straps is the first thing you do. So I've cut those straps. I'm just going to clip them. I'm going to come back and cut off the selvage because I don't want that as part of this. So I'll just cut that off. And even with the selvage, it's still about 22 inches. So I'm going to cut that off, and then I'm going to put these to the side. So when it comes to your strap, I am interfacing it because I want some stability to that strap or some rigidity. Normally I don't interface the strap because we're using a foam or something like that, but this time I am going to add interfacing because I want that stability. So the next thing that we will be cutting will be the center panel for the lining. So I mentioned earlier that the lining part of the bag itself, we use very little contrasting color fabric on this, and because I wanted the card slots to stand out in the bag, I use the exterior. So it's really just two pieces of fabric, a lining part and the exterior. All right. So what I'm cutting out now is I'm just cutting this centerpiece. I'm not cutting card slots yet. The card slots will get added to this centerpiece. Just like that. Hi, Teresa. Will get added on top of this. And this is the centerpiece that we have for the zipper. So next, what we're going to do, I know that I'm streaming, I should say, I'm streaming to Facebook and to YouTube. For some reason, I don't see the Facebook comments on my stream software. So if I miss you, I apologize in advance for that. I only seem to see the YouTube comments, and I don't know why. I got a couple of Facebook's coming through, but not everything. Okay. So now that we've done that, let's go back and let's cut that center part. Once again, there's a diagram. You can use that. I'm going to cut the center part. Doesn't really matter. If you want them uniform, definitely, if you want them to look exactly the same, pay attention to your pattern for that. Okay. So I'm going to rotate this a little bit here and cut off this selvage, and then I'll just proceed with the center panel. Like I mentioned before, I'm not worrying about them being the same on both sides. But if it matters to you, you should make sure that you do that. Let me just measure this real quick. Okay. So I'm just going to fold this piece down just like that. only because I just measured it and I know it's exactly what I need. And then I will cut this out for that center panel. And the center panel, once again, is the exterior. For the most part, everything on this bag is interfaced. The only thing um, that is not going to get interfaced is going to be there's one piece it's not, and that is going to be your zipper facing on the inside of the bag. All right, so this is going to be the center pieces of that bag, for the bag. So I'm going to cut this out, and I'll square it up this way first, and then I'll cut the other way. And I'm cutting two at the same time. That's why I folded it down. So I'm cutting two at the same time. And then when I turn it this way, I'm just going to cut just to make sure. All right. So now we have those pieces as well. Clip those together. That's the center part. And then the lining sides I will be coming back to, because those lining sides are done in our contrasting color. So I will come back to those. I'm just going to stick with the exterior for right now. The top zipper closure. And the top zipper closure is going to be, there is an exterior and there's a lining. So the top zipper closure will be this, along with the corresponding lining, which we'll come back and cut later. So that we'll cut the top closure now. Now for the top zipper closure, what I will mention to you is that when I cut it in one piece. So the reason that I cut this top zipper closure in one piece, I cut it in one piece, and then I'm going to split it in half when I add the zipper. And I'm going to explain to you why. When I put in the zipper, I do want it to look like it's one continuous piece. So that's another skill that's a nice touch. You may not think anybody notices, but I promise if you do a bag and then you do it, one person at least is going to come to you and say, oh, it even matches at the zipper. And so it's also a very good thing to do. So what's in here is foam. So that's why it turns so easy, the bag. All right. So when I zip this up, and this is what I'm referring to, when I zip this up and you look at the top of my bag closure, and I should have picked the blue pattern so you could see it even better. But when you look at it, it looks like these like little feathery pieces are continuous. And that's because I cut it in one piece and then I cut it down the middle. So then I had halves, right? So I had one for one side, one for the other side. And then when I put when I put the zipper in, even though some of the fabric is being used and turned under, it still looks like it's one continuous pattern. So if I were to do that, let's say with the blue here, you would see a break in the blue, but it would still look continuous to the eye. So in the pattern, when I wrote the pattern, I actually have you cut it as one piece. And then later on, I have you cut it in half. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. So I'm going to cut this. And I'm going to rough cut this again for myself. Only because I can't see the lines when I'm doing this, and so that's why I'm doing it this way. And then I'll come back and I'll square it up. Now it looks like a pretty big piece, and it is, because just to give you an idea, remember that when you put the zipper in, it's going to cup up like this. So the zipper will go in the middle, and this will be the side pieces that fit inside your bag, right? So it goes around like this, it cups up. So that's why it looks like it's a big piece, because it actually is. Before I do that, I'm just going to give this a quick iron just to get some of those little tiny creases out of here, or big creases out of here. And even though I use steam, I'm going to use a little bit of this little spray starch on the back of it. This is Best Press. I just want to get that out of there because it was not lying flat for me. Okay. All right. So now I can cut this and square it up to the way that I want it to be. So we're going to cut this down. And once again, this is the top zipper closure. And like I mentioned, I will be later on, I will be cutting this in half. So it's big now. Before I cut it in half later on, I will also interface it as one piece. So I don't have, two pieces to interface. It just makes it that much easier. All right, so that's going to be my top zipper closure. And I put clips and everything for myself because I have thrown things away. But you should, print out the pattern pieces, the little paper pieces at the back of the pattern so that you make sure. So that's okay. That's correct. Are you talking about? So you said that sounds to a similar bag pattern you designed. Are you talking? Okay, so you're talking about the way that I installed the zipper, and that's correct. I use that method a lot, even if it's not my pattern and I'm sewing somebody else's pattern. If I see that there is a zipper closure at the top, I look at it and I I add the seam allowance in the middle that they're going to use. And then what I will do is I will cut it as one piece because I like to have it as a consistent piece. The other thing you can do is, if you don't want to do the math of that, and because I hate interfacing, but if you don't want to do the math of it, you can cut, because normally it'll say cut 2 and it's the zipper facing. So what you can do is you can cut one piece and then come back and cut the other piece directly underneath it. And then that way you know that these two pieces match, right? So you can cut it into 2 separate pieces. I like cutting it as one piece because then I can interface it as one piece. And I don't have like too many pieces that I lose. But, yes, I happen to like that method. So you may see it pop up a couple of times. Thanks for that. Okay, so that's the zipper closure. Next, what we're going to cut is we're going to cut the card slots. So for the card slots, you're going to need, I have 5 card slots, so you're going to need 5. I'm going to cut them going down the side over here as one long piece, and then I'll just chop it up. And for that as well, I'm not finicky about card slots in general. So what I do is I just cut them and then I just put them in there. And usually they come out pretty good. Usually it looks very pretty. I'm not trying to line up any kinds of pictures or anything like that. I'm just actually, getting them done. And they're usually inside something like a wallet or a bag, so you don't even see it. So I'm just going to cut them, and I want 5 of them because it's 5 card slots. And once again, you can look at the cutting diagram, which shows you how to cut them. I'm cutting longer than I need as well here. And what I have you do in the pattern is I have you cut the card slots, and then after you've cut those card slots, they're cut to a certain width, and then later on I have you trim them down. And that's because as you're attaching them one at a time, sometimes they can shift left or right by, like, you know, an eighth or a quarter. But if they shift, don't worry about it, because you're going to come back later on and you're going to cut them down so that they're totally straight. So you just have to make sure you get them as close as possible. I'm sorry about that. I have a cat who, for some reason, as soon as I start working, could I have a meeting? Anything? She decides she wants to be part of the party. So I'm going to iron this as well. I have a seam like right at the bottom over there that I want to get out. Okay, so let's cut these up. And I am going to cut off that seam allowance, so just going to square it up right here. And just want to make sure I'm getting them all. There's nothing worse than you do it and they're all wrong. And I have one more to cut. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm not going to worry about this. It's so funny. I totally agree with you. I don't like it because then I have, she walks across my cutting mat, and then I have to lint and wash everything down to get rid of, you know, any stray cat hair. And I think, Arnetta, you know, I normally have a lint brush handy where I'm like trying to get rid of something that maybe you guys can't see, but I can see. And then she also wants to show her tush. So you'll see her tail go across the camera, and I don't think anybody wants to see cat tush. But she won't disconnect my internet. I have it hardwired now, so hopefully she won't. I shouldn't say that. Who knows? You know, anything's possible. Okay, so I had the 5 card slots here. What I was saying is I'm not going to worry about the card slots. I'm not going to worry about the card slots when I do them, when it comes to the actual making sure they line up. So they are, if you look at them, they're all kind of like random because I stacked them in here random. And that's really, I may just worry about whether I turn something up because I want to see, let's say, that pretty thing or whatever. But other than that, I'm not worrying about that. All right, so then the next thing we're going to cut, that was the card slots. We're going to cut we cut the center liner, and then the next thing that we have to do, and that was one of them, right? We have to cut another one for the card slot back, but I did that. So I actually cut 2 of them. So this is what I'm talking about. Oh, that's a zipper. So I cut 2 centers. So here I cut 2 centers. One of them is going to be for the card slot. So when I lay my card slots down, and this is the piece that's going to be on the zipper. In the pattern, they're written as 2 separate cuts, and that's because when you read through the pattern, I refer to them differently, and I want to make sure that you know which piece is which, even though they're the same, so that you're not confused in any way. When I do this, I think what I'm going to do is, this one is very decorative, so I'm going to make this for my zipper, and I make this for my card slot only because most of it gets hidden anyway with the card slot. But I've already cut these. So I'm still on page 5. I'm using the cut list on page 5. The internal zipper pocket, there are 2 pieces, and that's because when you create the zipper pocket and you fold it down, what happens is the piece that you stitch to the top of your zipper. So if I have a zipper here, I'm going to stitch a piece to here, which will be my lining, and I'm going to stitch a piece down here. There is a gap between the top and the bottom, that many inches, however that happens to be, depending on the width of your width of your zipper. You don't need that fabric, so that's why there are 2 separate sizes for the internal zipper. If you want, you can cut 2 of zipper A internal zipper pockets and then trim it down later. I am going to use my exterior fabric. I like to see that little surprise when you open the zipper. You can, of course, if you would like, you can use just your lining fabric. So I'm going to cut this, but first I'm going to see how much I have. Okay, I think I can cut 2 here. So I'm going to meditating over how I'm going to cut this. Okay. Great. All right. So I need for the front and the back, so there'll be an A and a B. So I'm going to cut them both as A's first, and then I'm going to shorten one of them. And I hold it because I actually cut it. I don't have any room on this side to cut. And then I'm going to cut one shorter. So one is just a little bit shorter. And I'll set one to the side. And I'll cut this one a little bit shorter. And I'll show you what I mean just so that it's clearer for you what I mean. So when I was explaining about the zipper, you have 2 pieces, right? What's going to happen is if you have your zipper piece, you're going to attach, and you can see with one's longer than the other, you're going to attach the longer piece to the top of the zipper, and then you're going to add the shorter piece to the bottom of the zipper, right? So there'll be a seam. And when you do that, you can see there's a gap in there, but there's also going to be a seam. That difference is a difference between the top and the bottom. So then these 2 ends usually match up pretty well. So that's why I cut them shorter. one shorter than the other. You can definitely cut them both to the longer length, and then when you're done, just trim it at the bottom. So that's another option. So I'm going to clip those together with my zipper. And then the next thing we're going to cut, we did this, is we're going to cut a zipper facing. Now, when you do your zipper facing, the purpose of the zipper facing, and not everybody does one of these. There's so many ways to do this, zipper facing, but this is the way that, like was mentioned by Annette, I consistently do it this way because it's easy to explain and diagram out and things like that. So the purpose of a zipper facing is so that you do not see the zipper on the inside. So a zipper itself has a raw edge right here. So if I were to just put the zipper here and attach the pockets, I would see that raw edge. The purpose of the zipper facing is so that when you look inside the zipper, you don't see any raw edges. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that zipper facing, lay it on here right side, and then tuck it under so that you have a very clean zipper with no raw zipper ends or anything in there. So it looks nice and neat. So that's the purpose of a zipper facing. It also makes it easier to catch when you're sewing in your zipper. If you don't have a zipper facing, you're going to have a very narrow, you're going to have this much material in that back piece over there. And sometimes it's hard to catch. If you put the zipper facing, you then have about this much on either side to catch. And you're guaranteed to make sure so that you don't see anything, any unfinished edges, and you catch everything. So the zipper facing is just one piece of fabric. And the zipper facing can be made out of anything. It can be your lining. I'm going to make it out of my exterior, but it can be out of your lining. Just for consistency, I'm going to make it out of my my exterior fabric. And it's just a very small piece of fabric. And I just want to make sure it's straight. All right, and this is the piece that I said does not get interfaced. So this piece will not get interfaced. So that's going to be our zipper facing. The next thing, I cut my strap. And then the last thing I'm going to cut are my little tabs. And you will need 4 of those. And the tab pieces are the pieces that we're going to use here to attach our strap to. And then we're going to need another tab piece that attaches to the main body of the bag on either side. So we're going to cut 4 of those. So I have a little scrap piece of fabric here that I'm going to use. I may need another piece, but we'll cut 4 of these. Okay, so I have 2 of them, and I'm going to cut 2 more pieces because I said I need 4. So I'm going to cut 2 more of those, and then we will have our tab pieces. So I have a little bit of fabric here. And I will cut those as well. Okay, so we have those 2. Once again, you don't have to these, since they're little tab pieces, you don't have to worry about them matching. I keep saying that because I know there's people who want everything to match, and it doesn't have to match. All right, so that's the tab pieces. The tab piecing. You will also need a piece of foam. So you're going to need one of these, and you'll need to cut that. Mine is already pre-cut, so I won't go through that with you, but it is you will need a piece of foam for that. And then you will need some Decoville Light. And remember I said to you I'm stabilizing the card slots just to give them some stability. So I'm going to need 5 of these pieces, and I'm going to cut these. I think I cut it wrong. Okay. So what I have you do is I have you cut it. I have you cut it to a width, which is shorter than the pocket. And when we do the card slot, you'll see why. And then I have you slice it up into pieces. So I'm going to cut these. So I'm going to need 5. I just want to see. Yep. Okay. Going to make sure I have that one. So you're going to need 5 of these. I'm not sure if I have the newest pattern. So I will check that out as we go through the pattern. I had one printed out. I just don't know if it's the corrected one or not. Okay. So I have 5 of these. Try not to lose them. I'm going to stick mine in my little cup over there and hope I remember. It's my little flip cup. So we'll have that. So then the next thing that we need to do is we're going to need to cut the lining pieces on the sides. So there's 2 side pieces. There's one here and one here. And then there's one here and one here. And then the other thing we're going to have to cut are this top piece to match our exterior. So just to make it easy for you guys to see, I'm in the kit. There was a navy blue color. I'm going to use this bright blue color because it's easier to see what I'm doing. And it actually goes with the material as well. So we're going to cut the side pieces. And the side pieces, I'm going to need 4 of them, right? Because there's 2 for the front and 2 for the back. So I'm going to fold this in half. I'm folding it in half just like this. Now this calls for interfacing. If you're somebody who's adventurous and you're going to use waterproof canvas, you don't need to interface this. So I'm going to cut 4 of these, and they're I'm just making sure that my measurements are correct, because nothing worse than cutting them and they're wrong. Okay. So I'm going to cut these. I'm cutting off the selvage right now. It's a little fuzzy piece. And then I'm going to cut them down. So I'm going to cut it into 2 pieces and then another 2 pieces. Okay. So that's 2 pieces because I folded it in half. And then I need another 2 for the other side. All right, so these 2 pieces, just so that you know, these 2 pieces here should match. All right, and then I'm going to cut, and they are a little bit big. I'm going to cut them down and square them up. I do have a lot of excess here. So let's just cut them. Now, if you wanted to, you could interface this as one piece and then cut it if you're concerned about shrinkage. If you pre-washed it, then it should be already, you shouldn't have to worry about that. But I'm a rebel bag maker. I don't pre-wash it. So that's one side. So this is going to be just, you know, that goes to the side. It goes on the side. So that's what we're cutting, the sides. And I may not need all of the other piece, but we'll see. So that's 2. And then we have one more. I mean, we have 2 more. I apologize. And this one's too small, so I'm going to need the other piece that I cut. And I will square it up, and then I'll just give it a little bit of an iron so that I can make sure when I put my interfacing on, everything is good. Excuse me. Okay. So we have 4 of those. The other piece that we're going to need, as I mentioned before, is going to be for our top closure. And that was a piece that I made that was larger. Remember I said, and then we're going to cup it under. So we're going to need that piece as well. And that, excuse me, that was the top zipper closure piece. So I think this should fit. Yep, this will fit. And I'm just going to trim it down a little bit. I hope it'll fit. Let's see. So I'm going to trim this down and then square it up. I did take a little bit off the side because I want to take a little bit off the other side to get rid of those threads on the other side. I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to cut this, and that's I did that because I wanted to get these threads off, and it was the easiest way to do it. And then I'm going to cut it down to be exactly the same height as the other one, or width as the other one. Now this doesn't matter. You could definitely cut this in half right away, but I just want to interface it as one piece, so I'm not going to. So these pieces, these 4 pieces, were for my side pieces. So I will iron those. And then this other piece here will match my top zipper closure piece. So it will match this piece here. So the piece that I cut earlier and I was explaining to you. Wrong pieces. Sorry. 1 second. So these 2 pieces will match because I need one for the exterior and one for the lining. And then when I put my zipper in the middle, right, that's when I said I'm going to cut this exterior in half. And later on, I'll cut this in half as well. But if you want to cut it now, you can. Now that you know what I'm going to end up doing anyway. All right. So just to make sure and to keep me honest, I'm going to go back through the pieces with you guys to let you know exactly what we cut tonight. We cut the foam, so hopefully everybody would have cut the foam. This is our exterior front and back pieces, so exterior front and back. Remember I said to you if it's directional, please keep an eye on that. You want to make sure that they're both facing in the right direction. The next piece that we cut was the lining center pieces, and so I had 2 of those. I'm holding everything in my hand. So these are the lining center pieces, and that was for the center of our lining of our bag. So those are going to fit right here in the main piece of the bag on both the front and the back. And I'm just going down the list. These were our side lining sides. Then we did top zipper closure, which is this. We did our card slots. We did our internal zipper pocket, A and B. So these were the internal zipper pockets, A and B. We did the zipper facing, and remember I said the zipper facing is just one piece of fabric. So it's just one continuous piece of fabric for that. We did our main strap. And then we did our strap tabs. And finally, what we did is we cut our card slots, stabilizers. So the way this is going to work So that's the card slot stabilizers. So the way it's going to work for the card slot stabilizers is that you're going to take your card slots, which are these pieces. They should be wider than they are taller. So when you look at the directions, they're going to be wider because remember I said to you we will be trimming these down when we're done. You're going to iron these in half, just like that. You're going to iron them. And then where the fold is, you're going to take one of your stabilizers and you're going to center it. And it could be roughly centered. And then you're going to fold it back, line the bottoms again, and you're going to iron it again. That's what's going to give you this a little bit of stability up here. So I'll show you what I mean. So this is one card slot and one stabilizer piece. What you're going to do is you're going to take card slot. Make sure that it's wider. It's wide. The width is this way and the height is shorter. You're going to take your card slot and you're going to fold it down in half to match those raw edges down here. Now this is easier. I can have you draw a line, but it's easier just to iron it. And you're going to iron this just like that. All right. So once it's ironed, you're then going to take your Decoville light, put it in the center so you can roughly guess or take your a ruler and measure in on either side this way and this way and make sure it's even. You're going to make sure the top of this matches that fold line, right? It should be the glue side down and it is shiny on one side. That's the glue side. That should be down. You're going to put it on. I lightly tack it in with my iron just to make sure it doesn't shift. Then you're going to close it again and you're going to iron it firmly to make sure it stays in there. Okay? So you're going to do that with all 5 of your card slots. We will not be doing the card slots until part 3, but I want you to prep the card slot so when we get to part 3, everything is done. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do, I'm just going to set my card slots to the side so I don't lose any of these pieces. The next thing that we're going to do is you will be interfacing your pieces according to the directions. So just to show you how I do that, I'm just going to grab a piece. We will be interfacing, by the way, the internal pockets as well. I just wanted to mention that to you. So I'll take, I'll take one of my zipper pieces and show you how we interface. So this is something you can do separately. You don't need to do this necessarily tonight with me, but you should do this separately so that when we're ready to start, you will be able to just start. So you're going to interface and you're going to cut. Take one of your pieces. I'm just going to iron this to get out as many wrinkles as possible. Once again, I use the Best Press, which is this stuff here. It's the stuff I usually use. And then you're going to take your interfacing, and your interfacing should be glue side down. So there is a bumpy side of the interfacing and there's a smooth side. You can see that looks like fabric, but this side is a little bit, I don't know if you can see, it's bumpy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it bumpy side down on top of my material, making sure that it covers the entire piece. I go in and I block fuse. And when I say block fuse, in other words, I will fuse a couple of pieces onto my interfacing and then I will cut them all out. Some people cut it exactly. So they will cut their interfacing exactly and then lay it on. I cut my pieces and then I just block fuse it. So I just simply do this. I hold it. You can give it a little bit of steam. This is the interface that I carry in my shop, which is DLH 2010. This is a light version. There's a heavy version as well, and I also have black. Okay. You're going to check to make sure none of your edges lift. So I don't know if you can see that side lifts. So that means I have to come back and make sure that I get them all fused. So everything should fuse very well. So you're going to leave the iron on there and it should fuse. If you have a press, you can use a press as well. So you can use your press with this. I have my iron set to cotton, a cotton setting. So it's as hot as it'll go. And normally they will, you know, they say don't move. Like I moved the iron around, which is very bad. You're supposed to hold it, leave it there for a couple of seconds, and then move your iron. The reason you do that is so that you don't distort or stretch the fabric. You don't want to then have to come back and recut it because you've stretched the fabric out of shape. And then what happens is when you start to cut it, you realize it's so far out of shape that it's no longer the dimensions that you need. Okay, so I've pressed that. I come back, I just check, and everything is fused. All right, so all the edges are fused here. So this is what I mean by block fusing. I will then take another piece of material, and I'm just going to iron this. This is the lining piece of the one I just did. So just iron out all my wrinkles, or most of my wrinkles, I should say. Iron out all your wrinkles. I'm then going to take this lining piece. I leave a gap because I need some place to cut. And I come back actually with a rotary cutter. You can do it with scissors. And then I will press this on. So that's block fusing for me. So I don't cut the interfacing when I cut the fabric. I normally just come back and then just fuse it afterwards. Your choice, but I find because the cotton is raised and this is raised, even if I do this, as long as it's flat, it doesn't stick on the bottom of the iron. But just get as close as you can. And then what happens is once it's on there, turn it over. And then you're sure that you will not get any sticky stuff on the bottom of your iron. So you get as close as you can, just like that. And you can block fuse a couple of pieces like that, as close as you can. And then when you're done, just turn the whole thing over like this. And I have a Teflon sheet. This is I say this all the time. It's a little inexpensive ironing board I got from like Dollar General or something. And I just cover it with a Teflon sheet. Okay, and then you just do that. And then once you're done doing that to all of your pieces according to the pattern, all right, it's a lot stiffer, by the way. It's a lot. I don't know how, I'll have to show you, but it's a lot stiffer with this interfacing on it. You can actually feel the difference. And then you can come back with either a rotary cutter, or if you want to come back with a pair of scissors, you can cut it. I'm simply going to use my rotary cutter and I'm going to cut this out. And take your time with this cutting. I know it looks like I'm, you know, I whip around on here, but please take your time because there's nothing worse than you cut something and then you cut too much or you cut your finger because it's in the way. So just take your time with this. But once I have everything fused in place, it's easier to just cut all the pieces back out. I also, once the interfacing is on, because it helps to thicken the fabric, and I'll show you that in a minute, if I take my ruler and I just sit it as close as I can to it, if I push, it actually bumps up against the edge of the fabric. And so therefore, I know that I'm cutting a straight line because it bumps up when I put it there. So if I put it here, if it was over, it would go over, but I don't, it's hard to show you. It's definitely a feel thing. But when I put it and it's right at the edge, you'll see All right, so that's at the edge. If I push it, see the fabric starts to lift. I'm not even doing anything. It starts to lift. That's because it's at the edge of the fabric. So if I just bump it right up against the edge of the fabric, I can cut it. And this part usually goes pretty quick. Even with curves, it still goes pretty quick. I'm just afraid that if I cut the interfacing and then the fabric shrinks, I end up having either a bigger piece of interfacing than I need. Okay, so that's 2 pieces down. You're going to do the same thing according to directions for all of the other pieces with your interfacing. And just to show you what I mean about it's a little bit thicker. It's hard to see it, but if I lift this up and I drop it down, that's what it looks like. But if I just take a piece of fabric, for example, and this is smaller, but this is just a piece of fabric that I have not interfaced. If I lift it up, see how fast it goes down? It just totally drops down. But this piece, and it's not because it's bigger, it's because it's interfaced. When I lift it up, it goes down a little bit slower, and it doesn't quite go down as far, but that's because it's bigger. So it actually helps to stiffen up your fabric, and you will be able to feel the difference. So interface all of your pieces for tomorrow night. If you want to just be prepared for tomorrow, well, for part 2, I should say. I keep saying tomorrow night. I should be saying for part 2 because you may not watch it tomorrow night. You may watch it the next night. But for part 2, if you just want to be prepared for that and you want to know exactly what we will be working on, I will tell you what pieces you should have for the ready for part 2. Okay, so we're going to have to do this a couple of times, guys. At least you get to see how easy it is to turn it once it's done. Okay, so for part 2 of this bag, the pieces that you're going to need to have done, your strap, and don't forget we are interfacing the strap. So follow the directions for that. You're going to need to have your straps done. You will need to have interface. You will need to have your tabs done, right? So these 2 tabs, and then there's 2 tabs here. Just follow the directions for those. You'll need your exterior, these pieces. And for the top zipper piece, you will need both the exterior and the lining, because we're going to put this top piece together tomorrow because it's considered the exterior. So that is 2 pieces, front and back. So one for front, one in back. Your lining for your top and your exterior for your top, right? So we're going to need that for tomorrow as well. And then what we're going to need is your strap pieces and your connector pieces. So if you follow the directions for that, you'll get those ready. So that's not that many pieces that you have to interface. But if you get those, if that's all you can get done, then for part 2, you'll be ready to construct the exterior of the bag. When we put the exterior of the bag together, there are pieces we won't, because we won't have the lining finished, but we're preparing the exterior piece for when we do the lining on day 3. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that you followed along with the pieces that are cut. There are quite a few pieces that need to be cut. And I tried to explain to each one. If you don't remember what the pieces are, just rewind back in the video as I cut through the pieces. Make sure that you take at the back of the pattern, there are little pieces or tags that you can put as you cut pieces. Put those tags on the pieces so that you don't forget. Tomorrow will be, I like to say tomorrow, but it's really day 2 will be the exterior. It will take some time. Tonight we're at somewhere an hour and 30 minutes. Tomorrow may go as much as 2 hours or maybe an hour and 30, depending how quickly we go. And then part 3 will be a little bit longer than that because we are putting everything together, and we also have the card slots. So if all you can get done for tomorrow is your strap, your exterior, front and back, your tabs for your straps, and the top lining and exterior for the zipper, if that's all you can get interfaced, then you'll be prepared for day 2. For day 3, you will then interface the other pieces according to the directions. So you have an extra day, or you can get a head start. It's up to you. But thank you so much for joining me. Once again, we are making the Sikukuu, and it's a pop-up crossbody bag. You can make the straps any length you want. And as we're going through the straps again on day 2, I'll explain that to you as well so you can fit it to yourself. I really appreciate you joining me. I like to ask everybody, if you would, to subscribe to this video, just so that you know a subscription doesn't mean you bought anything on YouTube, which I think has caused some confusion for some people, but it just means you want to get notified when something else is available on my channel. Thank you again for joining me, and we will speak again on day 2. Have a great evening, everybody.